Good afternoon. For those of you that don't know, my name is Augustus Invictus. I'm a candidate for United States Senate seeking to unseat Marco Rubio. I'm a lawyer and a politician. I'm a philosopher and an historian. I am not a martial arts expert or an expert in firearms training or anything of the sort. So I am humbled even to be invited to sit among you. Much more so being asked to speak. So thank you very much, everybody, for having me here. In keeping with the theme and the energy of this gathering, I wanted to give an informational lecture instead of something like a speech that would be given at a political rally. So today I'd like to talk with you about a passage in Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War and how I believe that episode applies to our situation. My mentor in law school, he had worked at the Pentagon. He had been educated during the Cold War, when the 30-year war between Athens and Sparta was likened to the conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. My mentor was a brilliant thinker when it came to foreign policy and international law, and so when he asked whether I'd be interested in doing an independent study with him on realpolitik, I was honored, and of course I said yes. And one of the several texts he had me read was Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War. And in that history is what we call the Melian dialogue, where we find the famous line, "The strong do what they can, the weak suffer what they must." And I was reminded of this recently by a t-shirt design of Master Chim's. And I thought to myself, what better topic to address at this convention than the Melian dialogue? Now, generally speaking, I take this quote in the Nietzschean sense, as Master Chim, I'm sure, does as well. We often hear in circles such as ours that might is right. I think somebody's got that shirt right now. We all worship strength, and rightly so. But for today's discussion, I would like to look at the situation of the people of Melos from a different perspective. As a matter of fact, what Master Chim said a moment ago about martyrs was the best segue I could possibly have imagined for this speech right now. So for those unfamiliar with the story, I will explain it in short order. Athens and Sparta went to war with one another for a bunch of reasons that I won't get into right now. Melos, which was a colony of Sparta, they refused to take sides in the matter. But when Athens started laying waste to their lands, Melos started fighting against Athens, naturally. They took Sparta's side and engaged in hostilities. And one day, the Athenian ambassadors, they came to Melos, and they said they had a message to deliver directly to the people. The rulers of Melos, they would have none of it, because they knew that the Athenians would go to the people, and they would breed distrust, and they would breed panic, and they would acquiesce to whatever the Athenians asked. So the conversation that took place, which is recorded in Thucydides' history, it was without any talk of morality, without any talk of sentimentality, or anything else that we see like the hallmarks of propaganda that are in the news and on television, anything that we're used to hearing as to the reasons we go to war. The Athenians made their case plainly in the brutal language of realpolitik. They said, "We are not here to explain our cause or to convince you that we are morally right for this reason or that reason. And neither are we here to listen to you call yourselves victims and say you've done us no wrong. We're past all that nonsense. All right, we are here to conquer your little town, and if you don't submit, we will crush you, we will kill all of your men of military age, and we will sell all of your women and children into slavery." And the Melians insisted that they wanted to remain neutral, and they asked Athens whether they would object to them just staying out of the war altogether. The Athenians respond by saying, "No, your neutrality is unacceptable. And it's not because you could do any damage to us, because let's face it, you are a flea compared to the Athenian might. The real reason we cannot allow you to remain neutral is that if we were friendly to you, our subjects would regard that as a sign of weakness, whereas your hatred is evidence of our power." The Athenians point out to the Melians that the question of right and wrong has nothing whatsoever to do with this conversation. City-states and towns retain their independence because they are strong and the Athenians are unable to conquer them. Melos had no such strength. The Melians speak to the Athenians of hope, of the gods, of their alliance with Sparta. They refuse to submit to Athenian rule, choosing instead to believe that some deus ex machina would save them in the end. And so it came to pass that the Athenians built a wall around the little colony of Melos, and they blockaded them, and they laid siege to the town, and all of the men of military age were put to death, and all of the women and children were sold into slavery, just as they said it would be. Athens wiped their little colony from the map, and they are known to history only as the fools who dared to stand against the might of Athens. Now, we chastise the people of Melos for their short-sightedness. They should have known better the price of weakness. But let me ask you, what exactly were they supposed to do? Submit? Surrender themselves and their freedom to be ruled by foreigners? Because no amount of military training or arms buildup would have changed anything, would have prevented anything that happened to them. They were a small colony standing against the entire empire. I contend that the people of Melos did what needed to be done. They fought to the death. I contend that the people of Melos knew what the American people have long forgotten, that death is preferable to slavery. I contend that the people of Melos are to us an example of right action. We must honor death and abhor slavery. We must fight even in the face of annihilation. See now the American people as the people of Melos, the federal government as the Athenian Empire. What are we to do in the face of such overwhelming force, with no escape and no honorable means of settlement? Are we to suffer our children being sent to prison for 20 years at a time for selling their own prescription pills? Are we to suffer our neighbors being incarcerated at a higher rate than the countries of Saudi Arabia, North Korea, and Venezuela combined? Are we to bend over and take it when the FBI raids our friends' houses and seeks to imprison them for standing against tyranny? Are we to teach our children that it is right and honorable to compromise with a system that seeks our absolute subjection to the designs of the financial interests? To me, the answer is a clear no. But if there is one thing that has surprised and appalled me in the course of this campaign, it is the extent of the apathy of our fellow Americans. There are many, even within my own political movement, who see no real problem with the system. We just need to fix this thing over there, or tweak this thing over here, and everything would be just fine, they say. If the FBI would just prosecute Clinton, we could trust the government again. If Americans could just be more tolerant, terrorists would stop attacking us. If rich people would just pay a little more in taxes, everyone would live happily ever after. My brothers, you must bash their ears with a hammer before they will learn to listen to you. The masses have found happiness in slavery. They love CNN and Fox News telling them what to think, how to feel, which products to buy, which governments are legitimate and illegitimate, what values they should hold. And so it is up to us, every man sitting here. No one is coming to save us. We have no ally in Sparta to swoop in and save us from the Athenian Empire. No legitimate belief that our gods are going to pull our asses out of the fire. No justified hope in the sudden enlightenment of the American people. We are it. So what are we to do? How are we to fight against the globalist empire headed by the federal government? I humbly propose to you an outline of short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies. In the short term, we must start with ourselves, which is kind of what we're doing here, I think. For if we are unsure of our purpose, or if we are weak or infirm or powerless, then the entire project fails. High cultures are not created by soft men who cannot make up their minds. High cultures are created only by the powerful. First, determine what you are fighting for. Take it from one who knows. When the FBI and the U.S. Marshals start interrogating your friends and your family, you start wondering why you ever started doing this. If you are unsure of your purpose, you will not make it to the other side. So before you do anything else, determine why you are doing this at all. For as Nietzsche said, he who has a why can live to bear almost any how. Next, I would recommend educating yourselves. Study law and history, martial arts and weaponry, the history of Western civilization and its values. Without personal power, you are not much help to anyone. We sit presently in a group of men who know all of these things between us and more. So let us take advantage of that. Last and most difficult in the short-term strategies, that is to disconnect. Free yourself as an individual from television, from fast food, from bank loans. Make of yourself a pure weapon. To strike at this machine, you must be unfettered by the chains keeping our fellow citizens in submission. It is difficult indeed to raise your fist against the system while still bound to your desk or your car loan or your favorite sitcom. Also part of the short-term strategy is to amp up your propaganda game. For make no mistake, we are fighting a culture war this very minute. We fight for family, tribe, and nation. Our enemies fight for mob rule in the name of tolerance. And in the present conflict, it is the media that matters. We are the minority fighting against a monstrous mob machine. This is an asymmetrical struggle, and we cannot expect to gain power over CNN or Fox News anytime soon. So in the short term, we need writers for blogs, personalities for podcasts. Social media is the new mass communications device, and no matter how much you hate Twitter, the masses use it. And let's not forget the role that it played in the Arab Spring. Another part of the short-term strategy, one I often overlook in my talks, is lawfare, which is, as you might imagine, use of the legal system to cripple your opponent off the battlefield so that his hands are tied in the regular theater of operations. The detainees at Guantanamo, they were taught to start screaming at the cameras about their ill treatment by the Americans. It was a propaganda effort, yes, but it was also an attack in international law, such that the federal government was pressured on the very legality of the detention center itself, let alone the practices therein. But beware that the federal government uses this as well, and its agents, they are experts at lawfare. One case that I speak of all the time, in one context or another, is that of the American Front. The FBI, they paid a so-called informant $40,000 to infiltrate the skinhead group, incite them to violence, and then testify against them in court. That case is ongoing, so there's only so much that I can say about it right now, but I will tell you that this is part of an age-old tactic of tyrannical governments. Outlaw militias and paramilitary groups, demonize those who stand against the empire, and disarm the population. This makes the enslavement of a people a foregone conclusion. The militiamen, the paramilitary groups, those who stand against the empire, these are the very people I am looking to recruit for what is coming, which is why I don't bother watering down my message. If you'll recall, I spoke of proposing short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies. In the mid-term, we must engage our enemies in asymmetrical warfare utilizing guerrilla tactics. We must not allow ourselves to be surrounded as the Malians did. But because I'm not trying to get any of us arrested for conspiracy charges, that's all I'm going to say about the midterm. You do not fight a stronger enemy on their terms. That was the gravest mistake the Malians made. In any event, such a midterm strategy would be bankrupt without having our sights set on the long term. What sort of society do we want to create, gentlemen? We talk of restoring our republic, but what does that actually mean? We talk of being free, But many would argue that we are free right now, even regardless of the fact that the FBI may be the new KGB, even given the debt system and usury and 9-to-5 jobs and the corruption of the courts and the infinite laws we live under. We know what it means to be free. We know what it means to restore our republic, and we know what sort of society we want. We know these things in our hearts. We live this vision daily, but we could be smug about that all day long, and it still won't mean a hill of beans if our vision dies with us. I said that the short-term strategy begins with self-education. So should the long-term strategy begin with educating our children and our grandchildren. Raise strong men and women, not ignorant, happy-go-lucky children, which I believe we just heard about the methods of doing so. It might be cute when they're young to hear them talking child's talk about Pokemon and television shows or whatever the hell kids are into these days. But think of what a disservice is done in the long run. If their parents do not teach them how to be men and women, the world will. And I tell you that the world will not teach them to value strength and honor and courage and integrity and intellect and loyalty. It will command them to value weakness and shame and ignorance and fear and submission. The long-term game is largely a matter of values. Also part of the long-term strategy is writing for posterity, not just for blogs and Twitter. Now, that's not a knock on blogs, as I've already noted they are important in the short term. But Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War has been guiding statesmen, politicians, for 2 millennia now. Food for thought. A final word on long-term strategy: create. And if you have not the vision, build with one who has. As for the overall strategy, short-term, mid-term, and long-term, I've said time and again, the entire question comes down to this: do you want to live comfortably as a slave, or do you want to be free and to risk your very life to claim that freedom? Here's another thing that the Athenians said to the Melians. You seem to forget that if one follows one's self-interest, one wants to be safe, whereas the path of justice and honor involves one in danger. Now, they said this to convince the Melians that the Spartan allies, they weren't coming to save them, but it is true across the board. If you seek justice and honor, you are in danger. Your life cannot and will not be comfortable. Slavery and honor are forever separated. The choice comes soon, and when it does, all will disappear like smoke in the open air. The bills, the soccer game, the open house at the school next month, the new Snoop Dogg album that just came out yesterday, by the way. Think of just the past month alone. Orlando and Dallas, another terrorist attack in France, an attempted coup d'etat by the military in Turkey just last night. These are not mere coincidences. These events are a beginning. Civil war looms in Europe and in North America. The entire Western civilization is on edge. And the coming conflict will wash away all the trivialities that we mistake as being things of importance. And this is why I say prepare. Work and prepare. For the time comes sooner than you may think. Thank you again for having me.